Now, our first panel discussion this morning is going to be, what are the high voltage danger zones for SMEs? According to Bill Gates, it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. When you establish a startup and join the ranks of SMEs, you pride yourself on having accomplished something. However, the hurdles in the industry are a reminder that you haven't won the battle quite yet. So what are the danger zones in the SME sector? What are the best practices that SMEs can implement to avoid failures? These are some of the issues that will be discussed in our first panel discussion now. What are the high voltage danger zones for SMEs? I'd now like to take the opportunity to introduce the moderator for this panel discussion, Mr. Aziz Merchant, Director for Brands International Consultancy. Apart from being a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, Mr. Aziz Merchant was associated with one of the leading Middle East luxury goods retailer and distributor, Chalhoub Group, in an area of strategic alliance, business development, retail development, and brand management. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together for Mr. Aziz Merchant on stage?
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. A story comes to mind. A 52-year-old SME owner who's walking down the Jumeirah Beach Road finds the Aladdin's magic lamp, picks it up, tries to rub off the dust of it, and we take the opportunity to call a very distinguished and accomplished panelist here. So we are making a wish now. Thank you, SME Summit, for allowing us to do that. Can we wish for a panelist who has 33 years banking experience and owns a company that directly connects investors and businesses to build mutually beneficial partnerships for growth, which also improves working capital and cash flow positions of SMEs? The genie has said yes, and we have with us on stage Rishad Pundar, Chairman Beehive Group, DMCC. Rishad, known as Rick, is a renowned and experienced international banker who has held senior positions at both HSBC and Emirates NBD banks over the last 33 years. In 2006, Rick joined Emirates Bank International as Group CEO, tasked with creating a regional banking champion. He successfully led the merger of Emirates Bank with the National Bank of Dubai, the biggest merger in the region at that time, to create the region's largest bank by assets, Emirates NBD, in October 2007. Next wish list. Can we wish for a panelist who is a successful entrepreneur, an owner of UAE's #1 product in its category, who can give us specifics on how to run a company that always had customers at its core, operates with sound business ethics, and is largely self-funded? The genie says yes, and we have with us on stage Ali Rahmatullah, founder of Herbline Essentials. Ali was educated at the Westminster School in London and then in the United States at Brown University. After graduating with an honors degree in economics and political science, Ali joined investment bank Peabody & Co. in New York and subsequently its London office, working in the corporate finance department. Ultimately, he made the decision to join his family's group of companies in 2005. He founded the Herbline Essentials. Today, Herbline Essential is the #1 best-selling natural skin and hair care brand in the pharmacy chains across the UAE. Next on our wish list, can we wish for a panelist who is an expert in trade, project, asset, and real estate finance transaction advisory? The genie presents Amreen Minai, a lawyer in the Dubai office of Pinsent Masons. She's a member of the finance team. Amreen has previously worked for Magic Circle firm in London and Abu Dhabi. She has substantial experience in advising banks, financial institutions, private equity houses, corporate and government-related borrowers in relations to both investment grade and leverage finance, asset finance, project finance, trade finance, and real estate finance transactions based on conventional and Islamic structure. She has a LLM in commercial law from University of Cambridge and a LLB from University of London. London. Now, can we wish for a panelist who can combine industry expertise with innovative technology to deliver critical information to SME owners in the financial and risk, legal, tax and accounting, intellectual property, and science and media market? The genie says yes. And we have with us Jean-Marc Parfik, Head of Marketing, Sponsors and Events, Thomson Reuters, MENA. He's in charge of building and delivering Thomson Reuters marketing plans and strategic events. In his previous role, he was the COO of Xavier after its acquisition by Thomson Reuters in 2012, in which he played a critical role. Prior to joining Xavier, Jean-Marc was the managing director of Reuters Middle East and Africa. He has attended several specialized executive programs at Michigan Business School and IMD. And finally, we would now like to wish for a panelist who can advise SME owners on issues related to banking law, foreign direct investment policy, foreign exchanges, and securities law. And the wish is answered. We have with us on stage as a panelist, Anjali Shiva Ramakrishnan, partner in charge of the transactional and private equity practice at Kochar & Co. Her practice areas include banking, finance, private equity, mergers, acquisition, foreign investments, and security laws. Anjali has substantial experience advising clients from diverse sectors, including not but limited to automotive, aviation, energy, financial services, private equity, infrastructure, oil, gas, real estate, and retail. We are lucky. The genie was kind to us. Let's start the session by first demystifying the term danger zone. We as a team did a lot of deliberations to understand what you mean by danger zones. Some said this means challenges, some said these are acute challenges, some said these are stumbling blocks, but we then concluded that the danger zone is a phase or a scenario for a SME in which there is a high risk of harm, especially where this risk has been officially identified in the previous phases and scenarios. SMEs have to be careful. It's like walking on a landmine, but it is in your control. It could go off any time and harm the SME. Thus, when we are discussing the danger zone, we are looking forward. You are predicting. Predictability is key. And this is exactly what we intend to do today. Predict the possible danger zones and provide a solution for the same. And thus the tone of this discussion will be forward-looking. Let's commence by asking our esteemed panel, what is their take on defining danger zones for SMEs? Can we start with you, Richard?
Thanks, Aziz. I think everybody probably understands that one of the key danger zones for SMEs is funding. It's financing your business. And obviously, as an ex-banker, very active in the corporate banking space, we've seen a lot of examples of that over the years. I just want to split it down into effectively three areas. Obviously, we're involved in a startup company as well, so we've been through this process over the last few months. First phase, you've got an idea. Depends on how big the idea is in terms of the quantum of financing that you're going to need. And if it's a small idea that doesn't need a lot of startup capital, then friends and families are usually the people that come to the fore and assist in terms of establishing, right? You haven't actually established anything, you've got an idea, and this is where you start. If you've got a bigger idea, friends and families, maybe it's not enough, and you have to go into raising equity through roadshows or what have you, but still you're not in the banking sphere, because as it's well known, I think, around the world, actually, it's not just unique to the UAE, that obtaining bank finance is actually quite difficult unless you've got a track record of at least 3 years of financials to show the banks that you're actually progressing in the right direction. So it is.
So you've got to. You're in a bit of a sort of catch-22 position because you're not going to get financing unless you've got a track record. So it is very difficult. 92% of all businesses in the UAE are SME businesses. And at the moment, 4% of the bank's balance sheet in terms of loans is for SME loans. So you can see that there is a disconnect. So, we'll talk a little bit further about some of the solutions later on, but funding is definitely a challenge. And as I said, you are caught between a rock and a hard place at the start because it usually has to be equity funding because loan financing is not available. What are the alternatives? We'll talk a little bit more about those later on, Aziz, but some of them include government support. You've seen a lot of news in the press about certainly the UAE federal government looking to support SMEs through funding, particularly local Emirati startups through the Khalifa Fund, etc. So there are solutions out there. As I said, we'll talk a little bit more later on.
Yeah, I think that was good. Ali, what do you think are the danger zones? You just have you've been through the survival phase of your brand.
I think basically once SMEs get through that initial proof of concept or survival phase, that's really when the danger zones start hitting home as you enter, let's call it phase 2, which could be the inflection point where you really need to put in place systems and a foundation for growth. And I think typically SMEs are started by entrepreneurs who have a vision, relating to the previous discussion of mind mapping and having a vision. And I think you're so busy in phase 1 trying to just make sales and survive and get day-to-day things done that the danger zone becomes at some point in time you need to hire good talent. You need to invest in human capital. If you don't, you can get caught up into the rut of daily operations, chasing cash flows, not having a strategy. So I think one of the key danger zones, and certainly what we as a company, which I can talk about a little bit later on, are at that phase now of having kind of survived for the first few years, is investing in good human capital. And in that, there are clever ways to do it, because SMEs typically are still cash-strapped. So, the traditional way of hiring a big staff and having a big fixed cost, that's a danger zone. So there are mechanisms around that. There's ways where you can outsource. You can have interesting ways of bringing good talent into your team to grow the business. And we can discuss some of that later on.
Amreen, what's your take on the danger zones for SMEs?
Well, as a finance lawyer, having been on both sides of the ball game, the bank side as well as the business side, it's I can identify some major concerns that banks would have to lend to a small or medium-sized business, or difficulties that business would face in satisfying those concerns,
so basically
the concerns of the banks.
For it,
yeah.
Qualifying for bank funds.
So, as Richard pointed out earlier, there's a big gap between the size of the SME sector in the UAE as well as against the amount of bank lending that's made to that sector. It's only 4% of bank lending, when SMEs actually make up over 90% of the total business population in the UAE. And it's interesting because if you generally the case is that SMEs don't require a ton of finance. The amounts that we usually look at is somewhere between 100,000 to 500,000. That's what you usually need to start up or to grow your business. But even though that amount is not a lot, the banks are not usually willing to take the credit risk. And why is that? Of course, if you see that a small business does not have that financial strength backing it, it does not have that reputation that a big corporation would have. It hasn't been in the market for that long. It doesn't have good, sound cash flows or revenue generating factors behind it. So banks would usually look at how they can make their, position, how they can get the comfort that the credit risk they're taking on is going to be worth it. And they usually do that by asking for security from the business. Of course, I mean, as you would all know, security is can be in the form of any asset that the business owns, or any receivables that the business is generating. And they usually, SMEs find it difficult or impractical to, to create effective security or even grant security for this purpose. I mean, there are legislative and regulatory difficulties for that, and but there are certain things that SMEs do themselves.
So this is all about healthy balance sheet, your collaterals, and
they wouldn't have like properly made financial statements, or they won't have a proper business plan.